The Cardinals defeated Bowling Green on Saturday, but there's a lot to unpack, so let's get started.
You are Locked On Louisville, your daily podcast on the Louisville Cardinals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Card Nation, what's going on, everyone? And welcome into this Monday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Pence. This is my sixth year covering U of L, fourth year hosting this show, and I want to take the time to thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. Just a reminder, Locked On Louisville, free and available on all streaming services 5 days a week, your team every day. Don't forget to leave a comment in the YouTube section below, because as you all know, that's a great way to help the show continue to grow. It is much appreciated. The Cardinals defeated Bowling Green 40-17 on Saturday to move to 3-0 on the year. A win is a win, but improvements are needed if Louisville has aspirations of getting back to the ACC Championship game and competing in the conference. Some unexpected injuries that we found out about after kickoff, and the special teams department has been a huge strength for the Cardinals special teams coming up in big ways on Saturday. There's a lot to unpack, but first, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. New customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. To get started, all you have to do is download the app today. Coming off of the early bye week, the Louisville Cardinals defeated the Bowling Green Falcons 40-17 on Saturday at Cardinal Stadium, moving to 3-0 on the season. It is the first time in program history that the Cardinals have started out 3-0 in 3 consecutive seasons. Very interesting to find that out. But in itself, it was a comfortable win. You were expected to beat this team by multiple touchdowns. You beat this team by multiple touchdowns. Now, it wasn't a perfect or, in some cases, pretty performance, but you got the job done. You trailed early on, 3-0. You got an early lead, 7-3 at the end of the first quarter, but you found your footing. Increased the lead to double digits, didn't look back. The game was never in jeopardy in the second half. A comfortable win in itself, but it's not a hot take to suggest that if Louisville wants to be a contender in the ACC, if they want to achieve the goal that they've set out of getting back to the ACC Championship game, they have to play better collectively. Like, a lot of the focus was on the offensive side of the ball coming into this game, and I think that there's still some concerns. I want to be fair and celebrate a win and give credit where credit's due, because you put 40 points up. A win is a win. You move to 3-0. It could 100% be worse. Can we agree on that? Of course. But there are high expectations for this team. This team has a lot of talent, so in some way that it might be viewed as unfair to be looking at this from more of a critical angle than a positive angle. I think it's also a sign of respect, because we understand that the ceiling with this team is real. Like, this team has the potential to be really, really good. They're just not there yet. Now, after the James Madison game, a lot of concerns. I felt like there were improvements that were shown against BGSU. Now, level of competition taken into consideration, the Dukes are better than the Falcons, probably. But offense was better. A lot of the concerns coming into this game centered around the offense. And what we came to find out early in the first quarter is that they were going to have to win without Isaac Brown for the most part, without Duke Watson, and without a fully healthy Chris Bell. Found out pretty quickly that Isaac, Duke, and Chris were dealing with injuries. Isaac had 1 carry. Duke didn't have any action on Saturday, and Chris Bell was banged up and not 100%. So you could point to that as reasoning as to why Louisville's offense didn't maybe perform to the level which we thought they could have. Now, it wasn't a terrible performance from the Cardinals offense. You had 439 yards of total offense. Not bad. Miller Moss completed 72% of his passes, 316 passing yards. Kewan Brown picked up the slack and averaged 7 yards a carry and found the end zone twice. Like, it could have been worse. And we're going to give credit where credit's due. Louisville's offense handled business, could have been better, And we're going to spend a good portion of tomorrow's show analyzing what went right, what went wrong, what needs to be improved upon going into the upcoming game against Pittsburgh. So overall, I thought the offense was okay, above average. I don't think it was a great offensive performance because there were far too many penalties that took away big gains. In the second half, Louisville's offense got the ball multiple times and just couldn't really find the end zone with the starters, and that was something that concerned me. I think Miller Moss was better than social media wanted to give him credit for. He was, I thought, above average. I don't think he was great, but I don't think he was absolutely terrible like social media would have led you to believe. So I thought the offense took a step in the right direction, but it's pretty clear that if they want to really be a contender in the ACC, is they have to continue to improve. The offensive line continues to struggle. Maybe they're a little bit better against Bowling Green than they were JMU. Like looking at the PFF grades, the offense had a 71.9 grade, which is above average. Passing was a 66.3, which is maybe in that average category. Run blocking, 56.4. Pass blocking, 51.5. Those are not good measurables at all. Defensively, 85.5. Not really much of a concern on the defensive side. They gave up 3 points in the first quarter, mainly because Caullin Lacy muffed the punt in Louisville territory. Louisville's defense forced Bowling Green's offense to stall. They kicked a field goal, made the field goal. It was like a mid 40-yard field goal. They scored the 3 points. Louisville got 2 interceptions in the second quarter, which was awesome to see. Antonio Watts, D'Angelo Hutchinson, preventing Bowling Green from putting some points on the board. The one play that I hated the most was when Lucian Anderson was on that option play, goes to the left. The Louisville defender misses the tackle, and Lucian Anderson runs free for a 75-yard touchdown. That's kind of the one play that I'm like, man, I wish we could have that back. Louisville's defensive starters didn't really play in the fourth quarter, and they gave up a scoring drive in the fourth quarter. So ultimately, not really much of an issue with the Cardinals defense now. They are going to be tested with more of a passing offense against Pittsburgh. So they played 3 offenses so far that haven't really been all that great at throwing the football, but they have done their jobs. You know, like the guys on that defense have stood up. There were times where I thought TJ Capers played well. Clev Lubin was really, really solid in this game. D'Angelo Hutchinson led the team in tackles. Clev had 2 passes broken up. They didn't record a single sack in this game, but I think most of that was because of Bowling Green running the football and trying to, make quick passes. Now, there were points in this game where Drew Pine was able to evade pressure and scramble for a first down, in which Louisville looked like they definitely were going to have him in the backfield for a sack. Didn't end up happening, and not capitalizing and allowing Bowling Green to extend series and extend drives. But defense, I thought, was much better than the unit that allowed 321 yards of total offense, which most of that came on the 75-yard touchdown run in the third quarter, and then the third-string defense in the fourth quarter. But special teams was really solid, sort of a Jekyll and Hyde to start the game, more so Hyde to begin with because Caullin Lacy muffed the punt. He ended up making up for it with a punt return for a touchdown. Cooper Rambier, Nick Keller were great on field goals. More on that coming up at the end of the show. But the team won the game in all 3 phases. It was a comfortable win. A win is a win. Like, I am kind of in between the 2 camps. There's one camp that's like, man, we won 40-17. There's no reason that we should be upset about this. There's no reason that we shouldn't be positive. And then there's the other camp that's like, man, yeah, we won 40-17, but what we were hoping to see, we really didn't see. And it's maybe not necessarily fool's gold, but it's tough to believe that this type of performance is going to be one that brings a ton of success when you play much better competition. I'm right there in the middle. I celebrate the win. A win is a win. Hey, 3-0 on the season. Love to see it. but there are some areas in which improvement is needed. There are some things that I saw on Saturday that created a little bit of concern, at least moving forward into the first road game of the season. But the main thing for me that's sort of concerning is you saw who Louisville didn't have or had in limited capacity on Saturday. Will these players be back? What does Jeff Brom think? We'll discuss that and much more when we come back. You're tuned in right here to Locked on Louisville. Quick question for all you college football fans out there. If you could go back in time and sit front row at your school's biggest rivalry game, what hat would you be wearing? Yes, I said hat. For me, it would be the game. These aren't just hats. They're the same vintage styles that fans wore back in the 80s and 90s. And guess what? They still go for the same price they did back then. When you use the code Locked On, it will get you your vintage hat for $16.99. All you have to do to get started is head to thegamecaps.com. Grab your team's classic bar or retro circle design and use the code Locked On for an exclusive discount, because legends wear the game. Thank you all so much for making us your first listen of the day. Just a reminder, the show is free and available on all streaming services 5 days a week. Your team every day. Continuing the BGSU game reaction. And of course, this is going to be a reaction that will span multiple episodes because there's a lot to unpack. But perhaps the most notable thing wasn't so much what the players did on the field. It was the players that either didn't play or they played in limited capacity. What we saw on Saturday. Now, maybe this came out right before game time because I was at the game. So admittedly, I wasn't on social media like right leading up. So I was watching the intro video and getting ready for opening kickoff. But Isaac Brown and Duke Watson did not play the first offensive series. I went to social media to maybe see why that was the case, and it was either reported by the On3 site for Louisville or the 24/7 sports site, either Will McDermott or Jody Demling. But basically, Isaac Brown, Duke Watson, and Chris Bell were all dealing with injury and would either not play or would be available in limited capacity. Now, fast forward to the end of the game, and you look back, and Isaac Brown had one carry. Admittedly, it was a really solid 18-yard rush. He played a couple snaps. The Cardinals used a lot of empty backfield packages. Isaac Brown out wide at times, didn't get a target, had one carry. After that carry, I didn't see him play again. Duke Watson did not play. To my knowledge, he did not log a single snap. Chris Bell played more. He played more than Isaac and Duke. He had 4 catches for 51 yards, but he was banged up, not 100%. This absolutely confused me because Brown and Bell were listed as starters in the pregame depth chart. They were listed as starters in that pregame video that they do at the stadium at home games, right, where players announce, where they're from, what position they play. You all know. So it's news to me, and forgive me if I missed it, but in the bye week leading up to this game, I didn't hear one thing about Isaac, Duke, or Chris being injured. I didn't even know that they were dealing with anything. Now, was this out of precaution that Jeff Brom is sitting there thinking, okay, well, we're going to need these guys at full strength. We can likely win this game comfortably without them. So let's err on the side of caution. Well, at the moment, the injuries are undisclosed. We don't exactly know what those injuries are. Jeff Brom said in the post-game press conference that he doesn't have an exact timetable. Like, he didn't, reading between the lines, not trying to put words in his mouth, but the vibe that it seemed like everyone got was that he's hopeful that the 3 players are going to return for Saturday's game against Pittsburgh. But he doesn't exactly know when they're going to return. Full transparency here. This episode is being recorded on Sunday. Tuesday's episode is being recorded later on Sunday. I'm out of town early this week for work, so I won't be back in town until Thursday. So I don't have the clarification. If we do get clarification, right? That's assuming that when Jeff Brom speaks to the media on Monday, we're going to find out exactly why they either missed the game or didn't play a ton. My intuition is telling me that we're not going to find out a good amount of clarification until the game against Pittsburgh. Competitive advantage, right? You're going to make Pat Narduzzi prepare for Kewan Brown, who had a really good game in Isaac and Duke's absence. 12 carries for 84 yards, 2 touchdowns, 7 yards per carry. But it kind of does worry me still that we didn't know about this. Like, Louisville has gotten struck by the injury bug pretty frequently already. Stanquan Clark is probably out for the year. Trevonte Sylvester, to my knowledge, didn't play on Saturday. He didn't play in any of the first 3 games. Nate Kariski came back for this game, but he was dealing with injury early on. And now you have arguably your 3 most important players on offense outside of Miller Moss that are dealing with something. And we just are coming off of a bye week. So, yeah, you might be able to have some type of optimism that they're going to play, but it doesn't make me feel too well that they didn't play. And if they did, it was in limited fashion. So, not really optimistic in that regard, but Chris Bell did play. Isaac Brown did play, albeit very limited fashion, but he did play. So, that's giving me a little bit of optimism going into Saturday. And maybe this is a situation to where it was completely precautionary, completely preventative. Like, yeah, they're a little bit banged up. We're going to preserve them as much as we can because we know that we're going to need them. It's a long season. We've got some pretty decent ACC defenses coming up here in the next month or so. Like, if we're going to have a chance to contend the ACC, we got to have Isaac Brown. We got to have Duke Watson, and we have to have Chris Bell healthy. Now, again, Chris Bell is the one that I feel the most encouraged about because he played way more than the other 2. Now, can you go to Pittsburgh without Duke Watson and Isaac Brown and beat the Panthers? I don't really want to try. I think that's kind of where I'm at. Like, I don't want to test the theory. Like, I am a huge believer in Kewan Brown. Granted, the offensive line has not done a good job of blocking and opening up gaps, and you're going up against a vastly superior defense to any of those that you faced thus far on Saturday. If you create the holes, I feel good about Kewan Brown. If you allow him to go downhill, he's a guy that can absorb contact near the line of scrimmage and still churn yards out for positive plays. That is huge. He might not have the explosiveness that Isaac or Duke has, but he still can be serviceable. And we've seen that because when his number's gotten called, he's normally risen to the occasion and he's answered the bell. But I guess it's one of those things to where it would not surprise me if we didn't find out much about Isaac or Duke or Chris until we got to the weekend. We might hear something later on today on Monday where Jeff Brom says, if he's asked about it, and I would assume that the local media would ask him about it, that they're probably going to ask about, well, what are they dealing with? What's the timeline look like? Jeff Brom's probably going to say something along the lines of, I'm hopeful that we're going to at least get 1 of the 3, 2 of the 3, or maybe all 3 of them back on Saturday. I don't think you're going to hear too much. And part of me doesn't want to hear too much because if it's something to where, hey, Isaac Brown is dealing with a leg injury that he had to get further testing on. And of course, that I'm not saying that that's what happened. I'm using an example here. Like, maybe having the specifics isn't necessarily a good thing. Maybe it's, hey, he's just banged up. We use this game to rest them, be precautionary, and we'll have him back against Pittsburgh. Like, that would be the hope. But again, we probably won't know something concrete until later in the week. That's what I think personally is going to happen. Of course, I could be very wrong, but let's take a look at the play on the field again. Special teams was indeed special. It started out very Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde-like, but quickly special teams ended up being a huge strength for this team. Caullin Lacy continuing to show out, and some history was made on Saturday. More on that coming up on the final segment right here, Locked on Louisville. Today's episode of the show was brought to you by FanDuel. Week 3 for the NFL season concludes tonight. FanDuel is making sure you're ready all season long with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. For me, I love using FanDuel because it fits however I like to bet. I like to switch it up a lot, whether it's player props, money line parlay, a same-game parlay, or sometimes I like to jump in live as the action unfolds. If you're ready to join me and you're ready to play, download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. And before we get into the final segment, let's take a look at what our friends over at Square bring to the neighborhood, because your favorite neighborhood spots more than likely run on Square. There are certain businesses that truly make the neighborhood feel like home, whether it's the local sports bar packed on game days, the coffee shop that knows your order by heart, or the corner deli that's been serving your community for decades. These are the places that bring people together. When neighborhood businesses thrive, the whole neighborhood thrives. Spending money at a local business doesn't just support the business, it supports the people behind it and the community around it. I, without a doubt, undoubtedly believe that. Those local spots are what makes the neighborhood feel like home, and so many of them run on Square. Square is the proud partner of more than 4 million neighborhood businesses around the world. You can go to square.com/go/lockedoncollege to learn more, but before you do, go support your favorite neighborhood spot. You'll be happy you did. Square, see you in the neighborhood. I know last week I said all week that there were only going to be 4 episodes, and then my schedule cleared up and I was able to get a 5th episode in. Unfortunately, that busy schedule extends into this week now. I'm pretty confident that there will only be 4 episodes, 2 recapping and reacting to the Bowling Green win, and then 2 previewing the Pittsburgh matchup. So 4 episodes this week, just to give you a heads up on the scheduling. Probably Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday will be the schedule. But let's talk about special teams, because they have been special. Huge strength for the Cardinals early on this season. Now, special teams showing out against Eastern Kentucky, not really going to get the praise because you're going to win that game regardless. But Bowling Green, a better team than EKU. Special teams looked like it could have been a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde situation early on, because Caullin Lacy muffed a punt in the first quarter. And that was one of the reasons why it was such a slow start. Lacy muffed a punt. He had to cover a lot of ground, and he was running full speed near the sideline. It's one of those where I wish he just would have let go, because even then, if he catches it cleanly, he's going out of bounds. His momentum is clearly taking him out of bounds. If you let it go and the ball bounces 10 yards back, that beats the alternative. Like, the losing 10 yards of field position beats the alternative of losing the possession altogether. So I wish he would have just let that go, but he made up for it. 14-7, Bowling Green punts, and Bowling Green's punter was incredible, but ends up booting a ball into Louisville territory. Caullin Lacy has to backtrack, and it looks like he could have lost his balance, ends up maintaining that balance and just going beast mode. 75-yard touchdown. Incredible. Second punt return touchdown in 3 games. He had 268 all-purpose yards, 106 punt return yards, 2 kick returns, 65 yards. Again, you're watching him as that Swiss Army knife be able to affect the game in multiple ways. That was a huge 180. It went from, oh my gosh, special teams is hurting us, to, oh, whoa. Special teams has been a huge strength. Caullin Lacy showed out in this game, and he made up for it. I mean, yeah, you still don't want him to make that decision to field that punt and make that mistake, because if you're playing a better team, you might not get as lucky. But having him back there on punt returns, I mean, every single time he touches the football, it's a potential house call. Like, that's how good Caullin Lacy has been. But special teams didn't just affect the game in the return game. Kicking. Field goal kicking has been pretty inconsistent, right, over the past X amount of years, hot and cold. Well, so far this year, despite not having as many high leverage, high pressure situations, Cooper Rambier has been perfect. 6 for 6. First kicker in Cardinals program history to make their first 6 field goals. Rambier had makes of 24, 40, and 48. Nice to see that distance, because I know that NFL kickers, it seems like a 50-yarder is becoming routine, but college kicker to have 2 makes outside of 35 yards, I think that that's pretty awesome to see. Nick Keller in the second quarter made a 57-yard field goal. It's the longest field goal in program history, surpassing Brock Travelstead's 56-yarder over the past couple of years, but huge make. 57-yarder, Nick Keller. I mean, this guy's got a boot. He was absolutely destroying the football on kickoffs. Bowling Green, did they have an opportunity to return a kick in this game? I'm not sure. They had one. Cameron Petaway had a 25-yard return. They weren't able to return any of the other kicks because even with little wind, Keller was booting the ball through the back of the end zone. And then he gets up there with an opportunity to knock down the longest kick in program history. And it was good. It looked like it had more of an opportunity, or it looked like it had more distance on that kick. So this is, I believe, it was the first field goal in his career, junior from Hebron, Kentucky. And then not to mention Cooper Rambier, redshirt freshman, in his first season as a starter. He's been perfect. So sometimes special teams doesn't win you games, but it can definitely lose you games. But in Louisville's case, last year, special teams went a long way to help win you games. Now, a lot of it was on the defensive side. Look at that Georgia Tech game. It was a huge game to be able to block a kick and return that for a touchdown against the Yellow Jackets. I forget the other game where it was really key. It's going to drive me crazy thinking about that, and I'll remember it after the recording. But when you have the offense that is struggling a bit, you're looking to take that next step forward. You got a defense that, yes, they've looked good against 3 opponents that haven't really been able to throw the football. How are they going to look when they play better teams? If you can be solid on special teams and be able to flip the field and be able to get a couple of big-time momentum plays, solid field goal kicking, like that can go and be huge for this team, because we saw in the Scott Satterfield era how you can dominate yardage but still lose games because you don't do the little things well, right? So having special teams become a huge strength for the Cardinals will be huge down the stretch when they're playing in some tougher games. But that's going to wrap up this Monday edition of the show. Tomorrow, we're going to discuss the offense, what went right, what went wrong, what needs to be improved, the slow start to start the game, and much more. That's going to wrap up this show. Everyone have a great start to your week. Go Cardinals.